Hey everybody, it's Nixter28 here, and today I'm going to be doing another albums ranked video. And today I'm going to be ranking one of my favorite bands of all time. I'm going to be ranking Van Halen's 12 studio albums. So, yeah, as you guys can see, that is their logo. It's a really sweet logo. That's on their first album. And then there is the first actual lineup of Van Halen. On the far left is Alex Van Halen. And then left to right, Michael Anthony, David Lee Roth, and Edward Van Halen. And Alex is the drummer, Michael Anthony is the bass player, David Lee Roth is the lead singer, and Eddie Van Halen is the guitar player. As you can see on the far left, there he is with his guitar that he built himself called the Frankenstrat. So let's get into just a little bit of the history of Van Halen before I rank their album. So, Alex and Edward Van Halen were born in the Netherlands. Alex being the older brother, and they were born into a musical family to begin with. Their dad was a clarinet player, and they were born in the Netherlands. So, and eventually, when they were young, they immigrated to the U.S. I think they were about 8 or 9 years old when they immigrated to the U.S., and they ended up in Pasadena, California. And this is where it all started. So Alex started out actually playing the guitar. I think he got a guitar for his birthday, and Eddie Van Halen got a paper route, and he saved up enough money to buy a drum kit. Now one day, Eddie came home from his paper route, and he found Alex playing his drums, and then all of a sudden Eddie started playing Alex's guitar. So they switched instruments basically, which was really cool. Now and then in the early 1970s they formed their own band. Eddie and Alex. It was just the Van Halen brothers at first. Eddie was playing guitars, and he was actually on lead vocals in the beginning, and Alex was playing the drums. And eventually they got a bass player named Mark Stone, and the only piece missing was a lead singer. So how'd they get David Lee Roth into the band? Well, at the time he was playing in a band called Red Ball Jet, and the Van Halen brothers and Mark Stone were renting their PA system. I think that's right. And eventually they decided, let's just get Dave into the band. And the next thing that happened was Mark Stone actually got asked to leave the band because he was too busy with school, with his schooling, with us doing homework and studying for classes. So Van Halen wanted him out of the band, and they eventually got Michael Anthony into the band. They saw him playing, I think I'm blanking. They saw him playing in his band called Snake at some club or something, and they got him in the band, so that's really cool. So now we have the official band formed. Oh, and I actually forgot to backtrack a little bit. I forgot to talk about more of Eddie and Alex's musical background. They actually started out playing classical piano. Their parents really forced them to play piano, and they didn't really like it, actually. They did not really like it, but they ended up winning competitions at their local high school, the Pasadena High School. And yeah, then eventually they learned to play the instruments they play now, drums and guitar. And Eddie learned to play guitar, and they both ended up being really good. So now we have the official band, and in Van Halen's early days, they used to be called Mammoth, but they decided to switch their name to Van Halen. And they started out in 1972, and then in 1974, they officially had this lineup that I've been talking about, Mike, Dave, Alex, and Eddie. So they basically started playing in clubs, and that's where we get to the albums. So, yeah, let's get started with ranking the albums. Alright, so this first album at number 12 is Van Halen III from 1989. Now, where do I begin with this one? I think we're going to begin with saying that this is definitely their weakest album. I'll get into why it's their weakest, but let's actually start with a couple of bright spots on this album. Now, I didn't really like most of it, to be honest. There's not a lot on here that's great. There are some special moments on this album. Um, Eddie's guitar playing is really neat. It's like really good, actually. At some points, it sounds like it's heavy metal. At some points, this album sounds like it's hard rock. At some points, it sounds like it's alternative, and that has a lot to do with their lead singer at the time. They had a different lead singer, actually. Their previous lead singers were out of the band. I'll get into that later. But yeah, they were out of the band, and they got this guy named Gary Sharon, who was a frontman for Extreme, and this album just didn't work out. It went in too many directions. It was like a heavy metal, alternative, hard rock album. It was kind of a messy album, if you ask me. It's more like an Edward Van Halen solo album, because at some points he's playing the drums, the guitar, and he's playing keyboards. So this is really a messy album. It's all over the place. That's why it's at number 12. And yeah, let's start with the good. Let's talk about some of the good points or good parts of this album and some of the things I really don't like, which is quite a bit of those. So, first thing, New World, the instrumental. That's really neat. It's a mixture of some really nice guitar playing and keyboards. It's interesting. I thought it's the best instrumental on this album. I would say it's a nice piece. It's a decent piece of music. And the song I really like, the song that's actually really good on here is "Fire in the Hole." It was used in the Lethal Weapon soundtrack. That's not too bad. Lyrics are pretty good. Gary's singing is solid. He's not trying to over sing like he does on "Without You." That song's kind of okay, but he just over sings on a lot of these songs. And what the heck's up with "Dirty Water Dog"? What kind of title is that? Yeah, and one of the deeper cuts I liked on here was "Josephina." That's a really nice song. I don't really have much else to say about good songs. A lot of these are just underdeveloped songs that could have been improved, is what I think. And one song that should not have been on here was "How Many Say I." It's really boring. Eddie's actually singing on it, and I think Gary's doing background vocals. It's just a mess. So yeah, there's nothing really else to talk about this. This is their worst album. It's just really messy. The production. One more thing, actually, the production not great. It's the guitars I think are too loud and the bass is too quiet. The drum cymbals are really too loud, so the production really kind of sucks. So in general, this album really is crappy, kind of crappy, and I don't really recommend listening to this unless you're ambitious enough and have an open mind. So yeah, let's move away from this crappy album to another kind of album. Our number 11 pick is "Balance" from 1995. Now this isn't all bad. There's a couple of actually pretty darn great songs in here. The Seventh Seal gets really deep. Actually, it's really deep lyric. It has some really deep lyrical content. I think some of the lyrical content is about like baptism. I actually quite like this song. The only thing I don't like is like the monks chanting in the beginning. That's kind of weird. And an interesting fact to note about the Seventh Seal: it was actually written before Van Halen was a band. Edward Van Halen said this in an interview in 2012. Now, another song I really like on here is "Not Enough." It's a really nice piano ballad kind of song. I really quite like it. Some other decent songs on here. "Can't Stop Lovin' You's" alright. Pretty decent. "Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do" is pretty good. But the thing I don't like about those songs is they kind of have this. They both have love in the title. And yeah, it kind of gets repetitive a little bit. And most of these songs I really don't care for. "Amsterdam," "Wham Bam Amsterdam" is the chorus. Don't really like that. "Strung Out," don't understand that instrumental at all. It's like sounds like a sounds like Eddie broke his guitar in there. "Aftershock," decent. "Doing Time," I don't really care for that. Yeah, and there's another instrumental called "Bollicterium." I had to look up what that meant. It's like a subspecies of a rhinoceros. I don't know. And last thing to talk about this album, or a couple more things actually. This is the last album where they had Sammy Hagar as the lead singer. He replaced David Lee Roth in 1985 because Roth went off to do a solo project, and then Sammy came in, and this is his last album. They got into a bunch of arguments. I think their manager died before this album was made. But despite that, this album's really well produced. Everything sounds nice, but the songs are just not that great, to be honest. And the other thing that's not that great is that cover. I do not like the cover. It's like a barren open wasteland with a bunch of rocks in the background, and there's these two conjoined twins on a seesaw. So yeah, it's a little weird. So Balance, yeah, number 11. I think it doesn't really need to be moved any higher than this. So all right, let's move on to the next album. This album is OU812, ranked at number 10 from the year 1988. Let's start out with the cover. The cover is actually Beatles inspired cover. You got all the band members on there. Dave, Sammy. Not Dave. What am I thinking? Mike, Michael Anthony, Sammy Hagar, Alex Van Halen, and David Lee Roth. This is Sammy Hagar's second album with the band. And this was actually dedicated to Eddie and Alex's father, Jan, who passed away in 1986, I think. Yeah, 86, 87, I can't remember. But yeah, anyways, let's get into the songs I really like on this album. I really like All Fired Up, Naturally Wired. That's what All Fired Up stands for. That's a very, very excellent rock song. I like the part where Sammy says, "You got me all fired up. I'm naturally wired." I think that's how the lyrics go. I think that's probably the best song in this album. When It's Love is a nice ballad. It was pretty high on the Billboard charts. It went pretty high on the Billboard charts. Cabo Wabo, not a huge fan of it, but it's about it is about like walking around on the beach in California, and this eventually would be the name of Sammy Hagar's tequila business. Source of Infection, the guitar playing and drumming is excellent, but not a great song lyrically. I think that's the big problem with this album is the lyrics. Not a fan of those that much, and the first song is kind of just a mid-tempo song. Mine All Mine. Feel So Good's alright. Finish What You Started is a highlight, probably, I would say, in this album. Black and Blue is pretty good. Sucker in a Three-Piece gets repetitive. And then Apolitical Blues is a nice blues cover by Little Feat. So, overall, this album, decent, just not spectacular, nowhere near spectacular, but there's some good songs in here, like AFU, Finish What You Started, and When It's Love are all good songs. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this one. It's good. So, number 10, OU812. Number 9, this is A Different Kind of Truth, and this is their comeback album with David Lee Roth in 2012. Now, Roth hasn't done an album with Van Halen since 1984, so people had like no expectations for this album, and this actually is a pretty darn good album, I would say. I've only heard this one once, actually. All the other albums I've heard multiple times, except for 3. And this one I've only heard once. And I quite liked it. Some of the songs I really liked are Chinatown and Stay Frosty was excellent. It harkens back to Ice Cream Man from their first album. Excellent lyrics and bluesy kind of feel to this song. The guitar playing in general is really good on this album. Chinatown is excellent playing on this from all aspects of the band. And actually, this is the first album with Eddie's son Wolfgang. He's playing bass. He does a pretty good job. Yeah, overall, I like the Ross lyrics. He like rewrote the lyrics to all these songs, but this album has a lot of older song. The musical part of this album, a lot of the music on this album is actually old songs from the 70s, from their Van Halen's club days. Because they played in clubs for a while until they made their first album, but a lot of these songs were written then, but David Lee Roth just rewrote the lyrics, so I think this turned out pretty well. There's no, like, super fantastic songs on here, I would say. They're all pretty good. The ones that are standouts for me are Chinatown and Stay Frosty, though. Let's see, what other songs are pretty good on here? She's the Woman is nice. Tattoo is a little weaker. You and Your Blues is okay. Blood and Fire, I know, is a song from the 70s. A reworked song from the 70s. Out of Space is a really good song, too. So, yeah, Different Kind of Truth is a good album. It just, I didn't feel like moving it any higher than this. So, yeah. Let's move on to the next one. Number 8, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge from 1991. And you guys can figure out there's an abbreviation. F-U-C-K. You guys can figure that out. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, why did I even get into that? You guys probably figured that out. But, yeah, this is from 1991. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Took them a year to write, and this is actually their third #1 album with Sammy Van Hagar. Yes, they had 3 #1 albums with Sammy. This is their third one. Balance being their last one. OU812 is the third, and we have yet to talk about their first #1 album with Sammy. So they were pretty successful with Sammy, and this is probably their most like award-winning album with Sammy. They won best like music. They had like the best musical performance like for Right Now. They won a Grammy, I think, for the video for Right Now. Right Now is an excellent song, by the way. It's definitely the best song on this album. It starts out with some like a piano interlude, and the lyrics are really deep. They're about it's about like turning your life around, that kind of thing. Yeah, excellent song. You guys have to hear it to know how good this song is. It's excellent. It's in the top 10 for Sammy Hagar songs. Very good song. I like Pound Cake. This song is like about Sammy Hagar's mom's cooking, and he really likes cooking too. So it makes sense they would write a song about cooking. The best part of this whole song is the beginning. The intro to this song, Eddie's playing he's playing the guitar with he's rubbing an electric drill against his guitar. It sounds really sweet. It's something I've never heard before in my life. So I've never heard anything like that before. It's excellent. Let's see, other songs I liked on here. Run Around is nice. Pleasure Dome has some excellent drumming from Alex, probably some of his best on any Van Halen album. Alex's drumming in general on this album is rock solid. What other songs are good? 316 is actually is an instrumental written for Wolfgang, who was born around this time. He was born on 316, I think. So, yeah, this is written for him. And another excellent song on here is On Top of the World. Actually, the main riff for this song comes from the end of Jump, which I'll be talking about that later. So, overall, fantastic album. It's a very guitar-heavy album, in contrast to the other albums with Sammy. But yeah, excellent album. Yeah. And this one was #1 for like 3 weeks, I believe. It was a #1 album, so fantastic. I would recommend you listening to this one if you're into listening to, if you'd be interested. Yeah, I would recommend listening to this one, I think. So, okay, let's move on to our #7 album, which is Diver Down. Now, this one gets a lot of flack because there's a lot of covers on it. And this album was with David Lee Roth. I believe it's their 5th album from 1982, and it has a lot of covers on it. And for me, here's my opinion on the covers. I don't have a problem with them because they used to do a lot of covers. They used to basically do all cover songs back in their club days in the 70s. So I really don't have a problem with it. It really adds to the flavor of this album. This actually, I feel like, could have been an EP or what else could it have been? An EP or a covers album, because there's a lot of covers on here. There's only a few originals, but they're all really good. So yeah, let's get into the songs on here. The covers are really interesting. I'll just name them all off first. You got Where Have All the Good Times Gone by the Kinks. Oh Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison, which is a pretty well-known cover. It's played on the radio actually quite often if you listen to classic rock radio. Dancing in the Street, which some people think is the worst song Van Halen's ever made. I disagree. It's not the worst song ever. How Many Say I is probably the worst ever, which I already talked about. And let's see, Big Bad Bill of Sweet William Now is another cover, and then Happy Trails. Those are all the covers, and there's 3 instrumentals on here: Cathedral, Intruder, and Little Guitar's intro. So let's get into what I think are the highlights on here. So the highlights on this whole album: Hang 'Em High. It's a fantastic, like, Western-inspired song. It goes all out the whole time. Yeah, excellent. Love this song. Lyrics are great on here. Love Eddie's chugging guitar. Cathedral is an instrumental, and this is an absolute masterpiece. It's supposed to sound like a church organ. Edward's guitar, and it's fantastic. I love that. Secrets is an underrated gem from this album. Roth is just fantastic. Roth is excellent on that song. And let's see, other highlights. I would say Oh Pretty Woman is still a highlight, even though it's not my favorite song on here. It's still a highlight. It's a nice cover. And let's see, Little Guitar is fantastic as well. I like the intro to it, but I feel like they could have combined the intro with the actual song. I would have liked that better. But it's a nice song. There's some nice really nice song on there. The Full Bog is, I would say, also underrated on here. So yeah, that's it for that. And what I don't like I said, I don't like how Little Guitars, the intro, is separate from the regular song. Don't really care for Intruder. That didn't really need to be included on here, I think, except the kick drum. But Alex's kick drum is really like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a Gorgon or something getting mad at you. I don't know how to describe the kick drum. I actually kind of like Dancing in the Street. It sounds like a rock and roll dance song. It's something you could probably dance to. I don't know, but I don't know if you would, but Dancing in the Street's not bad. Big Bad Bill is really interesting, actually, because they just decided, we're going to record this. Roth just decided, why don't you record this song with your dad, with Alex and Eddie's dad, Eddie and Alex's dad, Jan. So he's playing clarinet on this song. It's neat. It's a really neat song. Roth channels his inner bluesy self, and yeah, I like that. I don't really care for Happy Trails on here. It just seems like kind of a joke to have included that. So yeah, that's enough of Diver Down. Definitely, it might be worth a listen if you're willing to hear a bunch of covers. So the next one is 5150 from 1986. This is the first album with Sammy Hagar. And as you guys can see, I have a picture of the actual cover of the album and the CD. That is my dad's CD. I took a picture of it. And sorry, my phone reflected off the CD. But anyways, this is the first album with Sammy Hagar. And people were surprised to hear that this was a completely different version of Van Halen. It's not the party. They're no longer really a party hard rock and roll band anymore. They seem more mature on here. The music is really solid on here. And yeah, they successfully incorporated Sammy into the lineup. This is pretty much makes Van Halen a new band, and they're just breaking their own boundaries on here. The first song starts with Good Enough, and Sammy saying, "Hello, baby." And I'm not going to even get into the rest of the lyrics, because this sounds like it could have been I Can't Drive 55, which is a Sammy Van Hagar song. This definitely could have been. It definitely sounds similar to that. And then you've got Why Can't This Be Love, which is one of the first Van Hagar songs I heard. Get Up is really awesome. Alex is just killing it on that song, and so is Eddie. They're just killing it. Dreams is probably my favorite song where they had Sammy in the lineup. It's fantastic. It was used in the Power Rangers Mighty Morphin video, but I don't think that might have been the first time I heard it, but I've heard this on the radio too, and they have a really cool like Blue Angels version of this video. So it's just a really inspirational song in general. It gets you really thinking about life. It really does. Summer Nights, fantastic song. It's like a signature summer song, I would say. Sammy's singing about going down to a fishing hole too, which I really like. Best of Both Worlds is probably the masterpiece of this album. It's just in general a really good song. Love Walks In, excellent ballad. It seems like it's destined. It's definitely an arena rock song and it's destined for live play. 5150, the actual song is pretty good. And it's probably one of the weaker songs on here. And Inside, definitely a weaker song. This song sounds like a demo, which I think really was intended to be that way because basically the song's about Sammy like not trying to fit in with the band and basically this is like his acceptance song into the band. That's how I would describe it. So, yeah, I really like this album. Don't have a lot of problems with it besides maybe Inside. And there's Alex uses like electric drums, which isn't that great. But overall, really strong album here at number 6. The best album with Sammy Hagar. And this lineup was also called Van Hagar because, yeah, it's Van Halen and Sammy Hagar. Oops, low battery. Got to plug in. Sorry, guys. Just a second. But like I was saying, guys, this album I think is the best album with Sammy in the Van Halen lineup. Besides For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, I would say this is even better than that. So, yeah, let's move on to the next one. And this is Van Halen II from 1979. This is their follow-up to their first album. It is a really good follow-up. It doesn't near top the first album. Because I don't think it tops it because the songs are shorter. I think they just did that I don't know why they made the songs so much shorter on here, but yeah, they're all really pretty good songs. Dance the Night Away was like their Van Halen's like first big hit on this album. Beautiful Girls. This song is probably one of my favorites, actually. It's the last song, but it's one of my favorites on here. I like the part like towards the end where Roth sings "Put Your Cell Phone Down." I don't even know if there were cell phones around in 1979. This is a perfect song to be sitting by the beach listening to. This whole album, in fact, is perfect to be playing in the summer on the beach. That's how I would describe it. Yeah, you got "Dance the Night Away." It's like a club song. It starts out with a cover. You're no good. Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Song's kind of funny. Bottoms Up is hilarious. They sound like they're laughing, having a good time with this one. Out of Love Again. A lot of the fans really love that one. Light Up the Sky is one of my favorites on here. Excellent song. Spanish Fly is the instrumental on here, and it's like an acoustic version of Eruption, which I'll be talking about later. It's excellent. It's fantastic. DOA, which means Dead or Alive, is my favorite song on here. Lyrics are super catchy. One of the lyrics is broken down and dirty, dressed in rags. But your mama just told me to pack your bags. Is that not catchy? You guys have to hear. You have to hear that. You have to hear that song to figure out how catchy it is. And then you've got Women in Love, which is a little weaker. And, of course, Beautiful Girls. So this album, top 5 album. That's why I have it at number 5. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's a fantastic follow-up, but it doesn't near top the first one or the other 4, which I will be talking about. And it's got the classic logo with a different color scheme. So, yeah, let's move on to number 4. Women and Children First. Now, this is really where Van Halen, we're starting to stretch out in the studio. Stretch your legs and start to experiment here. So let's hop right into this excellent bar album. Perfect album to be listening to at a bar, I think. So this starts out with "And the Cradle Will Rock." First thing you're going to notice about this song, there is an overdriven electric piano in the intro, which is epic. I think it's epic. It's really creative, and it's just, this song is amazing. Everybody Wants Some is probably the most epic song on this album. It was used in the movie uh, Better Off Dead, and it's also in Zombieland, which I haven't seen. I've seen Better Off Dead, and I heard this song in there, and it just made me smile. Fools. I like the lyrics in this song, actually. Why behave in public when you're living on a playground is one of the lines in the lyrics. Romeo and Delight is just balls out. It's a balls out song. Tora Tora. This sounds like a doom. It's like kind of like a doom metal instrumental. It sounds like a tribute to Black Sabbath. It's excellent. Loss of Control is just ballistic the whole time. It starts out with Roth. Or it starts out with Roth trying to sound like he sounds like a pilot, and he's like on his radio and stuff, and awesome. Take Your Whiskey Home is probably David Lee Roth's masterpiece on this album. It's fantastic. Could This Be Magic is like a supper club kind of song. You'd want to be listening to this at a supper club or by a campfire. It's really cool. And Could This Be Magic, meaning, yeah, you have to listen to it to figure out what that means, but basically means could it be magic that you're stranded on an island, something like that. You can interpret it in your own way. And then in a simple rhyme, just a beautifully well-written song, I think. Probably the best written song in this album. Just the lyrics are great. It's got a great bridge to it, and excellent song. And it's got actually it's got an instrumental at the end called Growth, which is too short in my opinion. Should have been longer. But yeah, anyways, this album, fantastic album from 1980, Women and Children First. And there's a list online, I think it's on ultimateclassicrock.com or Loudwire, and it said on there, the writer, whoever wrote the list, said, this is the most fun you can have with your pants on. I think that's the best way to describe this. So, yeah, anyways, that is it for this album. Let's move on to the next one, which is Fair Warning. It's a dark masterpiece. That's how I would describe it. This is a dark album, and it's a masterpiece. And just look at the cover. This completely describes the album. You're like basically this album gives you the vibe you're in like downtown New York City, and you're having a hard time surviving down there. It's basically, it opens up what life would be in the inner cities. And the painting on the cover, I believe, is called The Maze. I forget who did it, but I think that's what it's called. So let's get into the songs on here, which are all good. By the way, starts out with Mean Street, fantastic intro to it, and then it goes into Dirty Movies, which is about porn. And yeah, I'm not gonna say anything more about that. It's probably one of my favorites on here. Sinner's Swing. Hear About It Later is a really well written song. Unchained, it's still in their concert repertoire today. Very memorable song. Push Comes to Shove is actually a reggae song. Pretty interesting. So This Is Love is an awesome song. Sunday Afternoon in the Park. Sounds like this instrumental sounds like it's talking to you. It's just, how could an instrumental song talk to you? But it really does. It's got synths in it. It's got fantastic drumming and guitar playing. And then you got One Foot Out the Door, which is just pissed at you. It's a kid going out the door and just being pissed at his family. That's how I would describe it. So, Fair Warning, this is top tier Van Halen album. Highly recommended. I've listened to this many times. It just shows how good it is. So I can talk about how great this album is. So, yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the next one, which is 1984. And yes, that is baby George Orwell on a baby. That is George Orwell, who was a baby with wings, and he's holding a cigarette. So yeah, that's the cover of 1984. And this album has Van Halen's only #1 song called Jump. And a lot of you probably heard it, actually. A lot of A lot of sports teams use it for theme music. The Winnipeg Jets have used it for theme music, I know. And the first time I actually heard this was years ago, actually. I've heard this song a while ago. And the next song is Panama, which is about driving a car, apparently. And I really like Panama. Top Jimmy, it's a good song. Drop Dead Legs is also good. Hot for Teacher is a masterpiece, and if you haven't seen the music video, you got to check it out. Why did I call it a masterpiece? It's absolutely hilarious. It's got probably Alex's best drumming on it. This is one of Van Halen's best songs, Hot for Teacher. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend you listen to it. I'll Wait. It's a fantastic, is a very well written song, I think. Girl Gone Bad is kind of, I would say, is underrated. It's not fantastic, but I like Girl Gone Bad. And then House of Pain, just in general, the guitar playing and the drums and the bass are great on here. This is a really strong album. It was number 2 behind Michael Jackson's Thriller in 1984. Let's see. Jump was a number one song. In 1984. This album went diamond. It is a absolutely astronomically fantastic Van Halen album. I highly recommend it. And this album also uses synthesizers. I forgot to actually talk about synthesizers on some of the other albums. 5150 used synthesizers. Let's see. OUA 12 used synths. I think it used synthesizers, and this album uses synthesizers on Jump, which really added a song. It makes it a much better song, I think, having the synthesizers. And I'll Wait uses synthesizers as well on here. So, yeah. That is it for 1984. I'm going to move on to the last album, which is the number 1 album, their debut album. And I think one of the main reasons why this album is so great is because they had all the material written from back in their club days. They had years to write this. They started the band in 1972, for crying out loud. And they were they had started playing these songs back in like 1974, 5, 6, those years. And then they put together a demo in 1977 where Gene Simmons actually took notice to it. And this broke Van Halen out of the underworld, basically, from the underground, as Atomic Punk references. This is the best Van Halen album, very much. It definitely is. And in this album, Edward Van Halen rewrote the rules to classic. He rewrote the rules to playing the guitar, basically. It's so good. This could be considered one of the best hard rock albums of all time. This brought hard rock back, basically, from the depths of... This basically brought hard rock into popularity, I think. Everybody is literally on fire here, just like the title of the song number 11. David Lee Roth defines what a frontman should be. Michael Anthony is great on here. He's an excellent bass player. Alex's drumming is top tier on this album. So this is absolutely their best album. So let's talk about the songs. Running with the Devil is probably... You couldn't ask for a better introduction to Van Halen here. It is fantastic. Yeah, I've heard this song many times. I've heard this album many times, and I still really love it. Running with the Devil. Eruption. Goodness, guys. Goodness, people. You just have to hear it. Hear how God tier this song is. It is God tier. You basically when you hear this, you don't feel like something like this could exist, but it does. Makes Edward Van Halen seem like an alien. And actually, the Minions play this. This is played in the Minion movie, Eruption. This is the song. This is it. This is the instrumental. So, yeah, anyways. You Really Got Me is the Kinks cover. It's also a pretty good cover. Probably their best cover they've made. Ain't Talking About Love could be the best Van Halen song of all time. The lyrics are fantastic. Guitar playing is fantastic. Just this whole album has a fantastic vibe to it. I'm the One is excellent. It's such a good song. Jamie's Crying is a really good song too. Atomic Punk, love the vibe on this song. Feel Your Love Again, Feel Your Love Tonight. It's a great song. Little Dreamer, I think, was underrated. I love that song. And then you got Ice Cream Man, which I talked about earlier. Um, it's a John Brim cover. If you haven't heard this, I highly recommend it too. Yes, and David Lee Roth is playing acoustic guitar on here. It's a really good cover, I think. And then you got On Fire, and they are on fire by the end of this album. It's just this is great. This album is great. It's absolutely a god tier album, and that's what I have to say about it. Really, there's a lot more I could say. I could dive into the songs more, but man, is this really a well done album. So yeah, that is it for my Van Halen ranked video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I highly recommend you check out this album. And yeah, I recommend all the first 5 choices: Diver Down, 5150, and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I'd recommend all of those. And if you want to listen to the other ones, fine. But yeah, that's basically it for this video. And if you want to find out more about Van Halen, just go on Wikipedia or watch the VH1 Behind the Music for Van Halen, which is excellent. That's how I learned a lot of information about Van Halen in general, so I could do this video. But I just wanted to know for myself. So anyways, I hope everybody who watched this enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.